Do you know what the name was of the anti-Sharia law constitutional amendment in Oklahoma? This was on the ballot in Oklahoma. It passed with 70% of the vote. It changes the constitution of the state to ban Oklahoma courts from considering Sharia law in making their rulings, you know, just in case. The name of that constitutional amendment, I kid you not, the Save Our State Amendment, as in save our state, save Oklahoma from the Muslims. As we reported last night, the implementation of Oklahoma's new Save Us from the Muslims amendment has been stayed by a federal court judge in Oklahoma City in light of a lawsuit challenging the measure on First Amendment grounds. That lawsuit was brought by the head of the Council on American-Islamic Relations in Oklahoma. CAIR sent us a dossier of emails they said they have received in conjunction with this case. Emails they told us were sent in just the last week alone. Most of them I cannot get anywhere near reading to you on television, including overt threats against President Obama and detailed descriptions of the desecration of Muslim graves and a lot of really impenetrably bad spelling and all caps screaming. Some of the milder ones, quote, "This is America and the voters spoke, get the message, we want you all to go home." Quote, "Go back to your own Islamic country, stop invading ours." Quote, "Shut the heck up. You people are neither citizens of Oklahoma or the United States. Take your Islamic laws, shove them up and go back to where you came from." This one also in shouty all caps, quote, "Oklahoma has spoken in regard to your frickin' messed up so-called religious whatever. Now back the F off. Americans will never get or accept your frickin' beliefs, so basically give up and go back to where you can be the freaks that you are." This one, quote, "We will work together in this country, Jews and Gentiles, to destroy mosques built here and cover them with the blood of swine because your," spelled wrong, "religion is nothing more than a superstition." That last one from a genius in Dallas, Texas, who also claims that he has the ear of the FBI terrorist task force, spelled wrong, and the Department of Homeland Security. I bet he does. CAIR also tells us that their offices have been vandalized recently. Some of the threats and vandalism that they have been subject to, they have been advised by law enforcement to not describe in more detail for their own safety. Joining us now is the Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations in Oklahoma. His name is Muneer Awad. He filed CAIR's lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of Oklahoma's bizarre Sharia law constitutional amendment. Mr. Awad, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me what the climate has been like in Oklahoma for you surrounding this whole anti-Sharia law constitutional amendment?
Well, initially it's been somewhat intense, as you could imagine, bringing about the lawsuit again in defense of the Constitution and in defense of Muslim citizens of Oklahoma. We've been challenged by a lot of the supporters who supported this amendment ever since it was mentioned as a state ballot. But recently, since the lawsuit, since the judge made an order to stay the certification, we have seen an outpour of Oklahomans who have come to our support, who have mentioned the need for rationale and the understanding of the violation of our First Amendment rights. And they've spoken out with us, and they said it's unfortunate that we've allowed politicians to basically rewrite our Constitution solely for political gain. And they're supporting us with our cause, and hopefully it'll be a successful one.
I know that the basis of your lawsuit is a claim that it violates your freedom of religion, it violates your First Amendment rights. Why do you think that this passed so overwhelmingly? It passed with 70% of the vote.
Right. Well, I mean, this was a well-planned and well-funded campaign of misinformation. We basically had politicians stump speeching, telling Oklahomans to fear the looming threat of Islam, that Islam was coming to take over our courts if we didn't act immediately. Unfortunately, it resonated with a lot of voters who don't know much about Islam, who've never met a Muslim, who know nothing other than what these politicians were telling them. And if we know, I mean, we already have an amendment that makes sure Sharia law will never take over our courts. It also makes sure no religious law will take over our courts, and it's called the First Amendment. If we know that it's impossible for a foreign law or a religious law to ever conflict with and replace the laws of our courts, we need to ask these politicians, why were you deliberately misinforming Oklahomans into voting for this?
If you think that the overwhelming vote for this was born of ignorance, and I have to tell you, I share your belief that it was, do you think it would have made a difference to have prominent voices, particularly on the right, speaking out about religious freedom and respect for Muslims and respect for Islam and what the meaning of the First Amendment is? Would it have made a difference to have people essentially trying to tamp down the ignorance in this case?
Absolutely. I think so, absolutely. I mean, if we had people that come from the same side of where these political campaigns came that were telling Oklahomans to fear Muslims, to be afraid of Muslims, to disrespect Muslims, if we would have had voices out of that side come out and say, no, this is wrong, there's nothing to fear about Muslims. Muslims are our neighbors. They've lived here just as long as we have. They are engaged and active members in our community. Had we had voices from the side of the political campaigns that were pushing this say that, I think it could have cut the edge off of the violent rhetoric and the hate rhetoric that has come out. But of course, if you have voices that say we shouldn't be hateful, we shouldn't be violent, we shouldn't be fearful, that would undermine a campaign that's based on hate, violence, and fear. So that's obviously why no one from the political campaigns on that side came out with those sentiments.
Muneer Awad, the Oklahoma Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, bearing a lot of grief and getting a lot of abuse right now for his position there and for having launched this lawsuit defending religious freedom. Thanks for your work. Thanks for being here, and good luck to you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks.